Welcome to Influence to Death, your guide for navigating the wild world of wellness influencing.
So topically, when I was using the powder, now I'm making this tincture extract from the peel. I don't
Yeah,
really have, basically, I'm making the tincture from the peels from organic pomegranates that I buy. I have not gotten down the method of making the powder, and making a tincture is so easy. But when I was
yeah,
making powder, or like if I make an infusion of the peels, then I will apply that topically. But yeah,
That's
it
cool.
depends. Not often.
we're talking about alternative ways to take care of rosacea. Because, yeah, do you know what subtype you have?
I don't know. Because my okay, here in Italy, there aren't that many people with skin like mine.
Uh-huh.
I went to the dermatologist and, um, I this was in 2022 or 2023. I had this, like, one red spot on my nose for, like, 4 weeks
Mm-hmm.
before I went to the well, it was a little longer than that, maybe 2 or 3 months before I went to the dermatologist, and she looks at me and she's like,
Rosacea. Rosacea. That
so,
is such a nicer name for it than rosacea. That's what I have. I
yeah.
would like rosacea.
Yeah. But yes, my son was with me and he was explaining to the dermatologist that I am like genetically 97% Irish and it's not like I have it's the fault of my delicate skin. And she's like, yeah,
Man,
we're
I
good.
need to go to Italy to get treated because I have like the most green skin ever. Whenever I'm like if Andrew and I are laying in bed next to each other and we look at our skin together, he just looks like this pink little pig. He's the whitest white.
Mhm.
And next to him, I look like green. Like
Really?
I've never thought about the color of my skin like that just because I appear so white, just, like
Yeah.
out in the world. But relative to his skin, it's like bizarrely green. So,
Wow.
and I have a ton of Italian blood. So
That's
we
how
gotta,
Andy's skin is. It's like, I mean, you wouldn't like the same. You don't notice it until it's next to my skin.
yeah.
I'm like, you're so white and pink.
So
Like,
pink. Yeah, he looks like I'm
yeah.
like, "You're like a little pig." I remember at NTA when we would have to do the different, like, testing based off the anatomical inch, like the thumb width. I remember I would put my finger up next to so many people's fingers to, like, compare our anatomical inches, and that's when I first noticed it. I was like, "Whoa, like, my skin is a different color than these people's skin," and then it's like I was like, "Oh, right, because 'cause I'm Mediterranean, like, that's the deal."
That's
Anyway, okay, hey, hi, welcome back to Influence to Death. At this point, we have published some episodes since we took our break, but this is the first episode we've recorded. We took December off, which I hope that, Hannah, you had a good.
I did. And I've been off because Amanda's been co-hosting and I
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
a
yeah,
little rusty, but I'm pretty excited to be back. And I'm excited
yeah.
for the stuff we have coming up.
And we are here today with our favorite guest, Sara Russell. It's Dr. Sara Russell. It's Sara Russell, PhD. I can't remember if we've ever dove into your PhD work on the podcast, but it's a
I don't think so.
fascinating line of study that you're investigating. But today she is here to talk to us about the technical name is placentophagy. I think I'm pronouncing that. Sarah, do you know you would be the person. Do you know the name of somebody who reads the words and then they can't pronounce the words correctly?
My name?
It's a Sarah is the colloquial term for that. There's some name for these people, which I am one of
Too.
like I said extrapolating for years until I
Uh-huh.
was just on a webinar one day and I was friends with the lead instructor and he was like, it's extrapolating. And I was like, okay. Anyway, but we're talking about placentophagy. And if you can, break that word down a little bit, you're going to get the gist pretty quick. It is placenta eating. And it's been around for decades now. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
women doing that in Hawaii in the early 2000s. I'm sure it was
Yeah.
around way before I figured it out. Hannah, are
70
you
in
a
the
little
US. I
peaky
am.
about it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you
But I
were.
know I've researched it before and it's so what's funny to me is that it like gives me like just like visceral reaction kind of like the leeches where I'm like, "Oh, this is grossing me out." But I always really respected it because I didn't know very much about it and I assumed because it seems so I don't know. I just thought it was like this human tradition that we've done forever and people were trying to bring it back. But
Yeah.
then, and Sarah might probably knows more about this, when I was researching it several years ago, I came across this paper that looked at like 170 plus societies, traditional societies around the world, to see their traditions of eating the placenta. And I think only like there was one account they found where that was
Yeah.
passed down. And so then I was like, wait a minute. If it's not this like special human like tradition, what are we doing? And why did this get popular? This is so bizarre. Is this like an American, like woo woo thing? What is this? So I guess we'll talk about that now.
Yeah. Yeah, there is only one account of, placenta consumption like, I mean, that I remember from the
Mhm.
studies I read.
Yeah.
It's very limited. I mean, when people say that in the traditional Chinese medicine, placentophagy is a remedy,
There we go. That's the pronunciation.
I don't know, that's how I say
Placentophagy.
it. But, when they say that that's the remedy, that it is a traditional remedy, it's technically true, but it was used in a very limited way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Like urine, same. When
yeah,
we did the urine therapy episode, I
Mhm.
talked to a couple different, actually, doctors of Chinese medicine that I trust, and they're wonderful balance thinkers. And they were like, yeah, in this like one formula, and it's like this very specific thing. And then it's gotten turned into like, people
yeah,
like bathing in their pee on Instagram and then selling their like beginner's guide to urine therapy book. It's like a very different way that they're interpreting it.
yeah,
Mhm.
This actually reminds me of, there's this meme going around right now where it's like 3,000 years from now, the people following the, whatever era diet, I don't even know what era we're in, and they're like sprinkling microplastics on their food to like mimic the diet that their ancestors ate. Things get really convoluted sometimes, and we make assumptions that, it's
Mhm.
it's good or beneficial or that everybody did it, and I think this is one of those examples where we have some evidence that that's not the case from a traditional sense.
Yeah, so where the heck did it come from? I mean, in that study, they found all these other traditions that use the placenta, burying it in a certain place. I think sometimes other family members maybe consumed it in some form, but not the mother. If I'm remembering correctly, sometimes like putting it around certain like plants or trees,
yeah,
or so there are all these rituals associated with it, but the mom wasn't eating it. And so then I'm thinking like how, if this got became popular in the '70s in the United States, like, where did that come from? Like, what is that? Do you know, Sarah?
I always assumed I didn't really run into this in the studies that I read, but I always assumed that it was just by observing other animals, like cats and dogs eat their placenta. I remember
Uh-huh.
my mom would help my cat deliver kittens all the time. This was I Italy in the '90s, and nobody spayed cats at the time. So our cat had like 10 kittens every year, and she would always eat her placenta.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I just thought that was a normal cat thing. But I always imagined, when people started talking about I heard about it for the first time in the human context when I was a young adult in grad school. And it was this history teacher, a high school history teacher, talking about his wife having given birth and that she had eaten her placenta. And it was like a very Berkeley thing.
Oh, Berkeley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People also, I'm sure some of our listeners understand Berkeley, but Berkeley's like one of those hubs like Eugene, Oregon,
Mm.
Asheville, North Carolina, Nevada City, California is in there. There's like, little hippie enclaves, and Berkeley is surely one of the top. So
Yeah.
just so that people understand, like right outside of San Francisco, it's like the most hippity dippity. And that's where you studied, right? Even Sarah, you got your
Yeah.
PhD there. And like, yeah. Yeah, yeah, I mean, in the Wikipedia article, did you all see this? That, I mean, it doesn't give, like, I couldn't find also Hannah or Sarah or, like, a deep account, but it just spoke to that, like, there's anecdotal evidence that different cultures ate placenta, which, research shows what you all are speaking to. It's very limited, but that it just started in the US in the 1970s, and that there was like kind of no evidence to back it, but midwives and alternative health
Yeah.
advocates kind of started to encourage it. January Jones is this one celebrity that the Wikipedia article, and this is the only place that I could find like a write up of, why did white people in the United States in the 1970s start to do this? January Jones was this celebrity who I guess she ate her placenta and then she
Mhm.
kind of made it popular. And if you see this photo of her, she's this like blonde. Oh, she played Betty Draper in
Yeah.
Mad Men. Do you all remember that
Yeah, she's a babe.
TV show? Is this like, yeah,
Yeah.
she's a total like, stone fox.
Mhm.
So it's like, she's like the hot girl next to the car. And you're like, I'm going to buy that car, except for
Okay.
eating placenta. So and they are thinking like maybe that was part of the reason that it like
Mhm.
grew to more popularity. And then one of the this is interesting to me in this same like little write up in Wikipedia that they're like, okay, the risks are unclear, but there's some studies that I saw about like the risk seems minimal, but we're going to get into that. But there is one confirmed case of an infant that they got group B strep because of infection from the mother's placenta. Although I saw a 2022 study where they actually analyzed placenta and none of the placentas that they looked at were positive for group
Huh.
B strep. So they were like,
It-
the risk is very low, but we're going to get more into the research, but that was all I could find for like
Yeah.
history.
It was a
Mhm.
strange case, Victoria, because the mother in that particular case, it was an Oregon woman, and
Oh.
she had actually tested negative for group B strep at week 37, but her placenta apparently had it. So she was infecting herself
Mm.
and passing it on to baby through the
Wow.
placenticles. It's incredible.
Okay, Sarah, would you speak to this seems important, like group B strep one, speak to that. And then also just like give people I bet you have more knowledge about the placenta than you've forgotten more than I'll ever know. But explain it because people, I think they think of it as this like waste thing or whatever. And it's like, it's an organ that grows,
This
right?
organ is so fascinating.
Now, here we go. I can't wait for this.
I don't know everything, but the placenta, first of all, sometimes we think of it as an organ of the mother, but it's not. It's 50% genetically the father's. Just like,
Whoa.
just like the baby. I don't think it has exactly the same I don't even know if it has exactly the same combination of DNA from mom and dad, but it has like it's basically 50% paternal DNA and 50% maternal DNA. So in pregnancy, when we look even at immune alterations and risk of, say, preeclampsia, there's a huge role of the placenta. It's not just the mother and the fetus. It's also the mother, the fetus, and the placenta, and the paternal DNA has a role in both fetal and placental immune and inflammatory dynamics. And one thing that I have been always extremely fascinated about is, in terms of anecdotal reports on negative reactions of the mother to placenta consumption postpartum, what role does, like immunohistocompatibility stuff
Yeah.
in relation to the
Yeah.
paternal part of the placenta? What does that have to do with those dynamics?
Yeah.
I just showed off my hot dog because this is my MHC complex. Do you remember learning in immunology that the way
Oh,
that
the way it fits together.
totally I saw this hot dog years ago and I was like, "Oh my god, it's like a visual representation of how we learned about MHC complexes," which is what the kind of the biochemical component of what Sarah is speaking to. So, but I just want to make sure people caught that. The paternal contribution to
Mhm.
the placenta is a big factor in preeclampsia and other like immune manifestations that women and babies experience in pregnancy. And I don't think we think about that. But
Mm.
that's like what you're saying, right? Because you didn't like cut out, but I just want to make sure people like get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is one of the coolest things I've ever learned, hands down. Like, I think when I learned about that, I had to reread it multiple times to convince myself that it was, like, true
Yeah.
because it is incredible. I
Yeah.
mean, no one talks about that ever.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
and how your exposure to, like, semen as a
Yeah.
woman, like, helps prime your immune system to tolerate that partner.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
what? Like, that
Yeah.
is wild. So,
Yes.
thinking about the placenta being 50% this dude,
It's
and then
50% bro.
Yeah,
50%
totally.
girl, and then, you're pregnant, and let's say you do have an immune response to that, and it's causing some complications or some hypertension or something, and then you deliver the placenta, and your body's like, "Oh, thank God it's out," and then you're like, "I'm gonna eat this and put it back in my body," and your
Totally.
immune system is like, "What are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
why?"
Yeah.
So what kind of negative responses can women have to eating the placenta if they do have a bad response, Sarah?
Yeah, do we know?
I don't think they're all documented. I can talk about my personal response. So I had a C-section. So I was going to have a home birth, and then I ended up having a C-section because I had a full placenta previa. My placenta per se was just incredibly healthy, and it's just that it was probably in retrospect, in hindsight, not a great idea for me to consume my placenta. But my midwife was like, "Oh, I'll encapsulate your placenta for free, and it will help you." I just feel bad about not being able to, do the home birth and all of that. So anyway, she prepared it for me and she encapsulated it for me. And she told me that it would help me prevent postpartum depression and all these things. Anyway,
Mhm.
she told me to take 3 pills a day. And I did. And like every single time I would take them, I would feel despondent. I mean,
Huh.
out of my mind, despondent.
Whoa.
Um, and I had told her, I was like, I think the placenta pills are making me depressed. And she was like, no, that's impossible. And I was like, "Huh,
If you hear
that's
this is
impossible."
let's put a red flag in this. People are
Yeah.
often like, "How do you know?" If you hear a clinician or anyone tell you, "That's impossible, that never, that always,"
Yeah.
that's a sign.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, well, I'm just going to take a break for a few days. And I took a break and I was fine. And then she was like, start taking them again. And I did. And I was despondent again. It was,
Oh
it
my
was just,
god.
it was
Wow.
like night and day. And I just stopped. I threw them, I buried them in the backyard under a tree,
Mhm.
under the apple tree. But anyway, yeah.
The apple tree just dies. It's like
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I think though, Sarah, what you're saying is really important because, I mean, for a few different reasons. It's mostly touted as a way to help women not
Totally.
have postpartum depression. That's like kind of the number one reason why women are encouraged to eat it. And so your experience is so important, I think, for people to hear that,
Mhm.
okay, maybe it's not going to do that. And also just for anything that you're taking, a supplement, a food, I think, I mean, well, food too. I mean, it's interesting, if you eat a food that you're reactive to,
Yeah.
but for supplements, especially or herbs or like that, if you feel bad when you're taking it, it doesn't matter what the clinician says.
Of course.
But people, I
Yeah.
think they like, we like will sometimes turn the bad feeling into like I'm detoxing or,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like we rationalize because we are so external in our like interactions with our own body, like the external direction is really how we're taught
Mhm.
to think. There's specific cases, golly, but yeah, it's just thank God you figured that out and took a
It
break
was
and
so
then
obvious. It was just so
yeah.
obvious, though. I mean, yeah. Um, but I've talked to other women who had negative reactions. I've talked to a lot of women who feel like they had a very positive reaction to their
Mhm.
placenta. And, honestly, when people tell me in their pregnancy, I'm feeling really attracted to the idea of trying to eat my placenta and having it encapsulated, what do you think? I tell them, look, if you're feeling attracted to the idea, try it.
Mhm.
If you're not 100% sure that you're feeling good, try, introduce it, take it out, reintroduce it, see if you feel better on it or off it, and just
Mhm.
go with what you're feeling best with. But it is worth trying if somebody wants to, because more than half of the people who try consuming their placenta postpartum do report that they feel good on it.
Mhm.
And it
I don't think it's worth forcing yourself to try it if you're not attracted to the idea because, I mean, there is literally little to no science to back it up. It's just
Yeah.
all the
yeah.
positive reports are anecdotal.
Mhm.
I would have to say it's also the same thing about negative reports are also
Mhm.
anecdotal. There is no
Mhm.
evidence of, say, dangers of heavy metal contamination. All the studies that have done investigation on heavy metal consumption, excess, levels of anything, they haven't found those. Now, it is not actually advised to consume your placenta if you've had a C-section because of the medication, the
Yeah.
anesthesia and all that. And you do need to use, a practitioner who has certified methods of encapsulating placenta. So that one case of the woman who passed Group B strep to her baby through the placenta, that her preparer had not desiccated the placenta. I think it's 110 degrees Fahrenheit that is the minimum to kill the bacteria, which,
Oh,
Mhm.
nobody really even knows how many of the hormones and the opioid receptor. There's some like opioid receptor factor that can help reduce pain postpartum in
mhm.
placenta, but like by the time you sanitarily prepare it, nobody's really sure how much of that is preserved. So we know what's in the raw placenta, but we don't really know how much of that survives proper preparation techniques.
Mhm.
Okay. So, like, so that any opioids plus, like, hormones like estradiol and progesterone, would those,
We
like,
don't know.
we just don't know. So any studies on that has been, like, on raw placenta, so once it's
Yeah.
all processed and then you wouldn't know the dose either, right? Like, if you're
Yeah.
putting it in tiny capsules, like, would you actually be getting a therapeutic dose of hormones? Maybe not. Yeah, there's no way to know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that really ultimately, there have been some studies done on like professional quality placenta, which might not even be human or from yourself. Like they
Okay,
might be
yeah.
like similar to glandular products that are
Mhm,
sold on the market, like adrenal cortex or whatever.
They
mhm.
sell Just hang on. They sell placenta like that?
I don't know, but I think it's been studied
I bet they do.
Okay. I'm
uh,
just looking up placenta supplement, and I'm just gonna see
because
what I can find.
from one
There
of the
was a
studies, yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah,
they
that's on
do.
your
It's
notes
Paul
there, there's a
Saladino
study
is the and Liver
that
King
says
are selling it. Mhm.
oh, they are selling it?
Yeah, yeah. They
Interesting.
have grass-fed beef placenta.
So
Yep.
maybe that's okay. Yeah, the study you had, in your notes, Sarah, it mentioned commercially prepared placenta, and I was wondering what that means. Maybe that's
Yeah,
like
I wasn't sure. I didn't really go and look for
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's the company Ancestral Supplements that
Mhm.
I am 99.9% sure that Paul Saladino and Liver King are the ones that own this company.
Oh,
Just
is that not
FYI.
transparent? We just do it doesn't say who owns it?
I'm making sure. Yeah, it's owned
I don't think
by Liver King for sure, Brian Johnson,
uh-huh.
and
Brian Johnson? The Brian Johnson?
no, okay, this is crazy. Sorry, Sarah, we're on a little bit of a tirade. Brian Johnson, Brian, is the legal name of Liver King. You know Liver King? Like,
Oh,
the dude
they
who
have the
for, like
same yeah. Oh, I know who he is.
yeah, yeah, okay, so just for our listeners, if you Google Liver King, you're gonna see this, like, absolute tank of a man who for, like, years and years and years was like, "I am natural, I'm not taking steroids." Then these, like, investigative health guys, I can't remember the group, but this dude who's, like, a pretty well-known podcaster or whatever, got a hold of some emails somehow that Liver King had been, like, emailing back and forth with his doctor, and he was juiced to the gills.
I'm
And
sure.
anybody who had any experience in that world, like my husband's been a, you know, weightlifter for 100 years. He was always like, there's no way that dude is
Mhm.
like, I would bet my life. Okay. So then he had this like apology video. Anyway, his name is Brian Johnson, is Liver King. Also, this bro who is like, looks like he's been dipped in wax and he wants to live forever. Brian Johnson is the dude who is like the biohacking
Yes.
every minute of his life is documented, wants to live forever. There's something about that name.
Mhm.
They are both like extreme biohacker bros. But
Like,
yeah,
on a different spectrum, like, they're so opposite aesthetically.
yeah.
They look so different. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they do own that company. Brian Johnson, Liver King, along with Paul Saladino, I think is an owner, part owner. I'm just gonna double check this because I don't want to like say that he is part of this company, but yeah, Heart and sorry, his company is Heart and Soil.
Okay.
These are two different ones. But he does co-own that with Liver King. Anyway, we'll get this straight in the show notes, but they do offer beef placenta. Ancestral Supplements does. Anyway, that is a weird fact that both of those men are named Brian Johnson, and one of them sells placenta. One of them, I'm sure, would eat placenta if he could. Sarah, would you clarify though? Would you talk to people more about Group B strep and what the issue is with that if people don't understand like, why that's particularly important?
Yeah. So group B strep, which is not the same thing as the group A strep that tends to colonize our upper respiratory tract that causes strep throat. Group B strep is an innocuous, usually innocuous uh tenant of the vaginal tract in many women. But if you pass on group B strep to the infant, they can develop severe respiratory infections that could potentially be even fatal if
Yeah.
not appropriately and quickly treated. So there are different approaches to group B strep. It is considered a public health issue. In the US, it is approached through a vaginal swabbing of the pregnant mother around week 37. And if the mother is group B strep positive, prophylactic antibiotics are offered during labor. And then if it's negative, then it's not treated. In other countries, I believe in the UK, at least this was the case about 10 years ago when I looked into this in different countries, it is not treated prophylactically the same way that it is in the US, but it is, I believe, optional for mothers to test in pregnancy and then treated as needed in the infant if there are symptoms.
Cool. Yeah, I
Interesting.
just want to make sure people
Yeah.
understood that.
Mhm.
I didn't know that until I think I worked with you. And we like,
Okay.
well, I guess if women have been pregnant, they've experienced that, but if you
Mhm.
haven't, that's important.
Yeah.
Okay, we
Yeah.
know that to recap, we know that as far as it being like a natural human practice, placentophagy.
You have to come up with a new third way of pronouncing it, Hannah. So I have placentophagy.
Placentophagy?
Well, some
Placentophagy.
institutions-
I'm sorry, everyone. So it's not like a natural human. I mean, it's not a traditional practice, right? For the most part, as far as we know.
Yeah.
Some women have anecdotal reports of it being good, some anecdotal bad. There's not really any studies on it. Still don't understand the origin of like where exactly it came from, but I bet your idea about some hippies in the 70s watching animals eat their placenta, maybe I would say that's a very good guess.
Totally. Great guess.
But then I was thinking about like animals and why they do that. And it probably has nothing. I mean, it's probably like protective, right? Like I'm going to protect myself from predators by getting this thing that maybe smells good to them out of the way. So, they're not picking up that scent. Or like if for animals, like if they didn't have immediate nutrition after giving birth, which they probably don't for a lot of animals, it's going to provide them nutrients that they might need. Totally different for us because we have, things to eat usually.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I just think this is like it's wild to me because I was so turned off by it, but I gave it this respect because I believed that it had this like sacred value to humans. And now that I know that it doesn't really, I'm just like, it's just like really funny to me. No disrespect to anybody who
Yeah.
practices this or who benefits from it. I mean, it's cool. It's just interesting because I had the story like all wrong in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. It's so interesting, Hannah. I mean, I did a little deep dive into other mammals, like different mammals and even different primates, which ones consume and which ones don't. There are some really interesting articles on this, and it's really strange. Mammals are all over the place in relation to placenta consumption. There are some primates they nest in trees, and if their placenta falls from the tree, they will climb down the tree to retrieve it. So they're actually more vulnerable to predators by
Mhm.
retrieving their placenta. Other animals, like this flying squirrel that was cited in a different study, will go to great lengths to throw their placenta to the ground and just leave it there.
Wow.
So, completely opposite behaviors. And there are some animals, some mothers and infants that are completely mobile after birth,
Right.
but they still consume their placenta even though they could abandon it. So,
Mhm.
yes, nutrition is probably important. There are other mammals, like some rodents, that where the placenta is consumed by the older pups
Mhm.
and the father sometimes.
I remember reading that in your notes, and the way you wrote it was so amazing. You were like, "It becomes a whole family affair," and I just completely imagined like the dad and brother like chowing down. Yeah, yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, we don't know. I mean, maybe somebody knows. Maybe some, like I'm curious. Like, has like Robert Sapolsky and his observations of primates over the years, like what they see, or like even like okay, this is something I wonder, like, like a current, like a modern farmer like Kelsey, Hannah, if on a farm where, animals have salt licks and, access to plenty of food after they give birth, would they still consume their placenta? I
Mhm,
wonder what it would go. I don't know. I haven't. I'm trying to think like the goats that I've seen give birth, they lick their babies, but that's very different. Like, I
mhm.
just can't remember ever seeing a goat eat their placenta, but I'm sure a
So
farmer could tell us
yeah.
immediately.
So can we is that I mean, could we conclude that it's like a weird health trend that kind of
Oh,
came out of,
we
like,
can definitely conclude
human
that.
Yeah,
US culture? Like, so okay. I
yeah.
didn't
But
wanna
but in animals, some of them do seem to have it embedded in their DNA to
Uh-huh.
consume placenta. And it probably has a role in those particular mammals in mediating bonding between the mother
Oh.
and offspring. So it
Mm,
has something to do with oxytocin, and it's just like this biofeedback of some hormones. And I really do think that the animals that do tend to consume placenta do it regardless of what food is available to them. So, for example, our
mhm.
cats who had plenty of food. So, yeah.
That's so I wonder when you talked about your experience, Sarah, of having that, like, really sinking, like, or sad, despondent feeling, that made me think of so I nursed my son for 3 years, but I had dysphoric milk ejection reflex,
Mhm.
and the way you described that sound exactly like how I felt with Deemer, and
Yeah.
it's hormonal imbalance, and it's very intense and strong and sudden, and then it goes away. And I wonder if that's some kind of similar pathway with oxytocin or dopamine or something, for you that was
Yeah.
in the placenta in a large quantity that was, like, affecting,
Yeah, it
you know
could be. It could be, or, just like some kind of like neurotransmitter response to something in the placenta.
Mhm.
It certainly could be.
Or
Yeah.
like you're saying, like an immunological response, if
Yeah.
that's a super interesting area of study to look at the interactions between mother's immune system, father's immune system, placenta, fetus, like
Mhm.
fascinating. And I don't think people will, just, people in that field, of course, think about that, but like just regular people, even like clinicians, we're not like considering that, I don't think as much. And then, yeah, there's no, like, who has studied that?
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
has studied that with eating placenta. It's interesting. Yeah. Looking through your notes, Sarah, it's like, okay, there's all these different compounds that we can see that are in it. But yeah, there's, it's like Sarah sent us how many pages of like notes of research? I think
About
there's like,
8.
yeah, there's like 8 pages here. And there are studies here, like where you have gathered so much information, but it's
Mhm.
like almost every study, it's like, maybe this
Yeah,
is why
exactly.
this is happening. Like there's the one that I'm looking at right now, when we're talking about like the components that are in placenta that may be helpful, that progesterone and estradiol were found in the placenta in therapeutic amounts, like amounts that we would consider like, okay,
Mhm.
you're probably going to have an impact from that. But, it's like, does it survive processing? Would it
Mhm.
survive heat? And you made a note like in the digestive tract, is it actually, like can we use it in the way that we would think we would use it when we do like
Mhm.
hormone replacement therapy, which is like it's an extremely direct route, like transdermal or injections or pellets. Um, so there's all of these caveats where it's like we just don't know.
Yeah.
We have
Mhm.
no idea.
Yeah.
And then there was, I saw here, Sarah, you were mentioning like there's this opioid, it's called placental opioid enhancing factor. And then the other kind of opioid connection is maybe in the connection between the mother and the baby, I think. So just so that people know, it's not like you're getting some like opioid from the placenta. That is, I just want to be clear
Right.
about that.
Yeah, I think it's more if it does pass through intact and assimilable in the placenta capsules that the mother consumes, then it would be a modulator of the maternal pain
Right.
experience versus
Oh.
like, taking a codeine pill. It would or, some kind of morphine or whatever. It's
Mhm.
not the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just more of a activator or deactivator.
Yeah, and then it's like, do we even benefit from it? We don't,
We don't
we don't
know.
know. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah. To me, the thing that's interesting is like, okay, I can just say this about my bias. I totally have, this like natural bias where I'm like, live on the earth and do things naturally, whatever. I totally would have been one of those women who just like grabbed it raw and just like, like I had that. I lived in a community like that. Actually, I remember women giving birth next door at this little area where we lived. And like the vibe then was you would actually like keep the placenta attached to the baby for like, I think there was some, like the placenta would like open or something. This has been, I was like 21, drinking lots of beer, living out on the land. But I remember like going over and like seeing this birth and like the baby was still attached to the placenta. So they had like the baby laying there and then there's like the umbilical cord and the placenta has its own
Yeah.
little like bed. And then they waited until something happened to cut the cord.
Yeah.
And then my guess is they definitely like prepared that placenta and ate it in some way, but I could totally see people just eating it raw, which they do talk about online when you read some of these studies. They're not prepared. It's just raw placenta. But when so I like have that in me where I'm like, that sounds amazing. But yeah, when you like look through this, it's like, okay, like what you're actually getting. I'm sure
Nobody
there's
knows.
protein.
Yes. There
You
is
know,
protein. Yeah.
right. And then there's like iron, it's like you write about like all like the nutritional value. And we're going to share a lot of this in the show notes. Like they have looked at the macronutrient and micronutrient, and even like the toxic levels, like of any like toxicants that would be in the placenta. So yeah, it shows it's like, okay, it's rich in cholesterol, protein, iron, and selenium, but it's like, we can also just like eat, food.
Right.
Get
Yeah.
those like, are these other factors that we think that we're ingesting, the hormones, these opioid-like factors and like that, like, are we actually benefiting from them? We
There's
have
no way to
no
know.
idea.
We would
But
have to
on the
do a randomized
yeah,
control
you'd have
trial.
to
Yeah.
study it. But I will say, like, and Sarah, I would love for you to speak to this. It's like, it also doesn't look like there's any documented drawbacks. Like, the most current study I could find was that here, I can pull it up. It's the 2022 study where they looked at least like the bacterial profiles, and they're like, the risk seems extremely low
Extremely low if you are
so
preparing it properly. So you have to freeze dry it immediately. And that is also to preserve some of the other benefits, not just to prevent microbial growth. So you have to freeze dry it, then you have to desiccate it, then you have to pulverize it, and you have to desiccate it at, I believe, at least 110 degrees Fahrenheit, or it might be a little higher than that, but there is a specific temperature. Now there are a number of certification courses that preparers go through to become certified.
Okay.
So yeah, the risks are very low. We just don't
Mhm.
know the benefits,
Right.
exactly what the benefits might be. Yeah.
So if
Right.
someone wanted to try it, like, based on this, I would say, sure. Like, make sure it's prepared properly
Mhm.
and by someone who knows what they're doing, and if you don't feel good when you take it, don't take it anymore. That's, like, the best I feel like the best takeaway because it sounds like it's just kind of either or, and we don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe someday somebody will systematically study,
Yeah.
all the things that we don't yet know. But, there are a few interesting things, a few interesting considerations. One of them is placenta is basically the only flesh that a person could potentially eat that doesn't involve death, which it's very cool,
That is
Interesting.
cool. Yeah.
That is whoa. I'm, like, thinking now about cannibalization. That's, like I never thought about that.
I'm thinking of vegans.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Well, they won't even eat honey, but nonetheless.
Some vegans, yeah, some
Yeah.
vegans won't eat honey.
Huh.
Maybe that's the vegan's chance to that is so messed up. The vegans they hate me now. Yeah, I totally thought I mean, it's a fascinating point to think about
Yeah.
that. It's
I think
okay,
that's where I have that initial I think that's what my gut instinct is because it is, like, human. I'm just
ish.
like, "No." Like, it's
Yeah.
like a bad, like, bad, bad.
Your
So
taboo comes in, yeah.
but if it was a placenta from, like, another animal, I would not be weirded out by it.
Hannah, guess what you're getting for Christmas next year? Mm, I just wanted to make this point before we get too far away from talking about the preparation. So, this is the 2018 study. And Sarah, I cannot remember if this was in your notes. It's of course, it's out of Oregon State University. From 2018, Daniel Beneshik it looks like the lead author, but it was they're saying it's like the largest review of placentophagy, and they were looking mainly at safety. And so they got medical records of over 23,000
Yeah, I looked at that.
pregnancy. Okay. So 1/3 of the women consume their placenta. That's okay. I get it's Oregon. Again, people don't understand these little places like Berkeley. Oregon is the whole state. Put it in a hippie bag. That's where it belongs. So maybe there would be less percentage. And I'm thinking like I'm in Kentucky, Hannah's in Tennessee, like Italy, probably less, but that's a lot
Yeah,
of people.
no.
So 30% of 23,000, I can't do that in my head, but that's a ton of people.
It's a lot of people.
So, but they talked about that women most likely did it because they had like some like kind of like wanting to avoid like depression or anxiety or like that. But most of those 30%, 85% of that 30% consumed their placentas in a capsule. Then 48% consumed capsules that just contain dehydrated, uncooked placenta. I mean, they don't talk that much about the preparation and, I'm looking at the results, but even with that, they're saying that it was not associated with any adverse neonatal outcomes. They don't, they're not reporting maternal outcomes, but they're saying like cooked versus uncooked. I think it's extremely prudent to say like, yo, you need to prepare this correctly, especially based on, like what we were talking about with group B strep. And then there was another study I looked at where they tested for E. coli, which is another risk. We are not telling you to eat your unprepared placenta, but it does seem fairly safe. Just
It
kind
is.
of like, yeah, I wonder if part of what we're trying to do, like I'm like grappling with this, and feeling my own, like, oh, I would totally do it, is because it's like we don't know that much about it because we don't live in the way that we used to live. And what we have now, other than our own, like Sarah, thank God you have enough, horse sense to like listen to yourself and be like, I'm not going to eat this, even though my like birth provider was like telling me to. We like want that connection to something so bad, and I even wonder like how much that informs like all of these crazy trends, especially ones, like urine therapy and IV. We just did the episode on IV nutrients. That's, pretty far away from being natural, but these ones that are kind of more like roots style, or like raw milk versus, boxed it is highly processed soy milk, we just like want to get back to something. Like I can speak to myself. I'm like, I want to get back to like feeling like a human again and not like a computer monkey. And like, it doesn't feel right. Like something does feel wrong. But I think that desire put onto these different techniques, it is kind of misplaced. Like it's sad, but I don't
But
think eating.
also with this, especially because it isn't rooted in tradition.
Yeah.
No,
So,
yeah.
like, yeah, my grandma drank raw milk. Cool. I get the desire for that, like that one example, but she
Yeah.
didn't do this and my great grandma did and that's what's wild to me is that this one is totally a new age
Yeah.
thing.
For sure.
But it does have that sense of it being like this rooted in your tradition, but it is it's
Yeah.
just it's wild. It would be cool if it was studied.
Yeah, it would be really cool if it was studied more. I mean, big placenta is gonna fund study.
Speaking of that, have you guys seen the new dietary guidelines
Oh,
that just
yeah,
came
we
out?
have I was thinking
We
about
haven't
that
even
before we
talked about
logged on.
that.
I've just seen the image, I haven't read anything about
Yeah,
it.
same. Yeah, just the graphic.
Well, here's what I have seen is people either shitting all over it or people being like, "Yay, finally." And it's like, I don't know. Is it that much different than my plate? First of all, we haven't even had a nutritional pyramid in, I don't know, whatever, 20 years or something. Like the pyramid was gone a long time ago, guys. So if
Yeah.
you guys think we still had a pyramid, PS, that got overturned, I want to say in like it's been years.
A while. It's
Yeah.
been a long time.
And
Yeah.
my plate was lovely.
Yeah.
Lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, and then like a place on the plate for starchy carbs and protein and nutritive drinks. And then like, saying like, hey, there are risks associated with processed foods and sugar sweetened beverages, like fabulous guidelines. So I'm like, is it
Yeah.
that different?
It
I think
is, but it's like yeah, sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
I think in a way it's a different visual presentation with mostly, but I'm really curious, Hannah, what you think in terms of like the actual substance because I haven't gone that deep into like comparing.
I haven't gone that deep, but I've like seen based on what's funny to me is that it is a pyramid, which again, like you said, the pyramid's been gone, but that is what you always hear when people are like just kind of hating on the guidelines, is they're always talking about the food pyramid. But yet it's been my plate for however long. And like you said, my plate was really well balanced. I thought it was, I don't know, it's a very, the way the illustration, I don't think fully represents what the written guidelines say. And there's some contra, condict, contradicting like things. So I really want to do more of a deep dive and like read just, I don't know. It's kind of comical to me the way that it's been presented and not really, doesn't seem very legit or serious. It just is kind of like, it looks like a social media graphic image to
It
me.
is. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
You could, yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, wow." But then I'm like, "Oh, that's like our government's, scientific guidelines." That's weird. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I feel like it's their social media self-promotion, like, aren't we
Right.
grand? But it's not that original, really. I mean,
Yeah. It could be better,
Do you
obviously.
remember back in the day, Nourishing Traditions had this like really beautiful, aesthetically beautiful, it was like ancestral pyramid that they released. And it was like butter, eggs, and meat were on the bottom. And then it was
Uh-huh.
like vegetables and fruit. And then it was like at the top, like tiny amounts of just honey and maple syrup and blackstrap molasses. Or, it was like really beautiful. But it kind of to me was like reminiscent of that and the look of
mm,
it.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, it's hard because, like, I have a little bit of a bias about government in general. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. This
yeah,
one I feel like is a little more fucking outlandish and crazy than others, but they all make me just be like, ugh. So, it's like it's hard for me to look past that. And especially with, I don't know, this is not, we're like, do you ever see the musical Into the Woods where they're like, I'm in the wrong story? Like all the characters from different
yeah.
different uh, fairy tales or like that get mixed up. I feel like I'm traipsing into a different
Oh,
podcast.
yeah.
But when all the shit was released about Olivia Newsy, this journalist who covered RFK Jr., and they had this like extremely explicit text exchanges. I have no idea if it was ever consummated, but like all of that information came out over kind of like right before the holidays. And so we're in January of 2026. It came out probably like in November, December 2026. If you don't know about that, you should look
I
into
did
it.
not. Yeah.
It's some of the most explicit shit I've ever read, and I love a good smut book. So once that was all released, I was like, this dude is a joker. Like he is writing. Look, my husband and I say things to each other all the time. I'm not texting some man that's not Andrew. Like these texts are crazy. Anyway, it like reduced even further my like, kind of thinking about who he is and his character. And so like all of that put together, it's like, okay, I see this new food pyramid released when we haven't even had a pyramid in so long. And it just feels
Yeah,
like none of it was well explained. My plate was
right.
not well explained either. This is not well explained. Even if it was well explained, it's not that people were ever going to follow it.
Mhm.
And to me, that is the crux, is that we have had not bad dietary guidelines for years, even however you feel about grains, whole grains, which is what was recommended in the food
Mhm.
pyramid, definitely what was recommended and updated in my plate, not bad. There's never been a problem. People know the foods to eat. The
They
Yeah,
can't access
problem,
the
they
foods.
can't get
They
the
don't have the
food.
food.
Yeah, and even compared with that, even if you can get the food, the lobby for processed foods is so strong and so powerful. There's so much money behind it, the commercials, everything. It's so
yeah,
hyper palatable. You can't stop eating the shitty food to get the good food in. And
sure.
that is a business decision, by the way.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It's
yeah,
not a health decision. So until that shit is taken care of, who cares?
yeah,
Publish, a steak in the shape of a pyramid. It doesn't matter
yeah.
what's on the pyramid. Anyway, I could get so wound up about that. So all that is clouding my thinking
Mhm.
about this. For what it's worth, I just asked my chat GPT, I was like, hey, can you tell me the difference between my plate and the new dietary guidelines?
What did it say?
It said there are some practical differences, the level of specificity between proportions versus
Mhm.
targets and limits. So my plate had broad proportions. It looks like the new dietary guidelines, they provide explicit numeric targets for protein
Yeah.
and clear avoid limit language for certain categories, which I'm thinking processed foods, which is, yeah, cool, totally. Protein is more prioritized. The new dietary guidelines, dairy framing is different in the new dietary guidelines. So they're recommending full fat dairy with no added sugars. My plate did not specify that. The new dietary guidelines directly name ultra processed foods. I'm a fan. I think that that's great. But again, the accessibility issue for whole foods. Added sugar guidance is framed differently in the new dietary guidelines. They're saying added sugars should be less than 10% of calories per day.
I've
Cool.
done that before, I think.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. That's the previous edition.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
So I'm wrong about that. The new dietary guidelines state that no amount of added sugar is recommended, and a concrete rule of thumb that one meal should contain no more than 10 grams of added sugar. Cool. Alcohol guidance is less quantified. So in the old guidelines, they said, moderation was 2 drinks per day for men, 1 drink per day for women. The new guidelines remove daily drink number limits and instead advise consume less alcohol for better overall health, which, yes, it's a carcinogen. My plate may not fully track the newest dietary. I think this is not an explicit difference. Anyway, those were the big ones. So there were like 6 big ones. I mean, yeah, it's like,
Cool, but again, like it's comes like I think a lot of people know and have known that ultra processed foods are not a good choice. It's
we
just
all
that like
know. Yeah.
they have that choice or don't. And then I think there's also the problem of not understanding which foods fall into that category because all of your options are ultra processed foods. That's what you see in your store. That's what you see in your whatever food you have access to. And so it's just not understanding like, oh, well, this is one of the bad foods I shouldn't be eating. But that's like your whole diet. And what are you going to do? I don't know.
I mean,
It's
even there's kind of 2 things I think. Sorry, Sarah, I'm just like over here. There's 2 things though that I think, which is like the problem with processed foods, which most are hyper palatable. There's a caveat to that though that I think is important, is that your choice is taken away. You have to
mhm,
have like a pretty good amount of grit to stop at just one Lay's potato chip. The fucking tagline is can't eat just one. The food scientists that work for Lay's designed them to be that way, and all
mhm,
processed foods are like that. So even if you have, like, thank God, right? We have the choice. We went to Kroger last night and got a bunch of vegetables, and I could feel myself being like, I should get some tortilla chips. It's, my favorite snack. But the problem is, they're so hyper palatable, it's hard to stop eating them. And
mhm,
then secondary to that, it's like to put all of these foods, including like whey powder, in the highly processed category, that's craziness. It's like
mhm,
whey is a functional medicinal food. So, but nobody has gotten it right. So I don't want to just shit on this administration, without shitting on all the other administrations. They all deserve close scrutiny, and like really what needs to happen is better accessibility and less money being pumped into these companies that create foods that you cannot stop eating.
mhm.
That's the problem. So
Yeah, which they're not doing.
they're defunding. Yeah.
It's like the ultimate gaslighting. It's like, "You should do all
Hmm.
these things. We're gonna take all of this accessibility away and make it harder, but you should definitely
Totally.
do them." You know?
Yeah. Also, where does placenta fall in the new food pyramid? That is the question that oh my God, let's redraw it and just put placenta at
Yeah.
the bottom. This is our new stable. Yeah. God. Hannah, are you hearing things from your program
Not yet.
about,
I start next week, so I'm excited to hear what people think and my
yeah, what they have to say about
professors
this?
and advisors. Yeah, I'm gonna I don't know.
It is so it's like, is there anything that is like an actual, like a real change, I feel like, again, it's
Well, the statement on alcohol is interesting, and I wanna read more about exactly what was said and because it sounds like they've taken away the underscore of, like, alcohol is carcinogenic. You need to not drink alcohol to more of a liberal stance with it, and that's very concerning to me because I think that's one that actually does, more than anything, help people to make the decision not to drink as much alcohol is knowing that there's such strong scientific evidence showing that it's bad for your health in so many ways. And so taking that away, that is problematic.
yeah, that's I mean, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah.
I thought I heard this, and this is true. I'm just Googling this because a journalist asked Dr. Oz, who, by the way, if you've forgotten it, a huge part of our government right now, the Medicare and
Right.
Medicaid Services Administrator, uh, was like, okay, the guidelines have been changed, and so he gave a quote and he said, "Small amounts are okay. Alcohol is a social lubricant that brings people together." He claimed there was never really good data to back up the past recommendations, but there actually is
Is.
incredible data to back up the recommendations. And I think just, I mean, whatever small audience we have, I stopped drinking because I was afraid of breast cancer. And I remember going to see, I saw 2 different breast surgeons in Boston. I had a mammogram come back funny. And one of the number one questions they ask you is, how much alcohol do you drink? The less you drink, the less risk of cancer you have, and it goes up an incredible amount with the more drinks that you have. Yeah, to tell people, like, 1 drink is a moderate amount for a female and 2 drinks is a moderate amount for a
Mhm.
male. That's all
Every
you
day.
should. Yeah, great, good. That's good. That's enough. So, yeah, I just feel like, God, it's like, what a fucking clown show.
It was a clown show, and, like, every time something like this comes out, I just, like, can't help but think of how much of their decisions are based on anecdotal feelings and their own experiences and their experiences of their own social circles, which are so privileged and isolated
Yeah.
who are experiencing. It's just I mean, I picture Dr. Oz, like, giving that quote with a martini in his hand, like, after happy hour, being like, "It's a social lubricant."
It's like it is fun
Mhm.
and feels good, and same with, I love cigarettes. My God, if I, like, joke around, if I make it to old age, I'm just gonna light one cigarette right off the other. I love smoking. But, yeah, it's so addictive, and it's expensive, Like, it's like, I think, the physical implications, but, it's like, Hannah, it's so valuable what you're learning, like, the public health implications of they just have no idea. It reminds me of, like, did you guys ever watch that show Arrested Development? And there's, like, the family's, like, super, super rich, and they're talking to the mom, like, she doesn't even know what groceries cost, and she's like, "What could a banana cost? $10?"
Yeah.
It's like, that's totally the vibe, I feel like. Yeah, we kinda took a little bit of a turn there away from placenta, but it's a huge topic that,
Mhm.
is in our world, and Hannah, I was actually gonna ask you if you wanna do a whole episode on, like, let's really read the new dietary guidelines,
Yeah,
and I
let's do
just
an
asked
episode on it,
ChatGPT, um,
and we'll break
but
it
it would be
down.
great to, yeah, to see, and yeah, if you wanna read some smutty texts, look up those RFK Olivia News.
I
Okay, anything else about placenta that
I don't think so.
we've got tons of studies to share in the show notes. I mean, we did a
Mhm,
fairly good job of discussing it. It seems like if you wanna do it, go for it, but
mhm.
there's really no.
Yeah.
I think pay attention to how you feel. Sarah, your, experience was, it's like, first thing right out of the
Mhm.
gate, so valuable. If it doesn't make you feel good, even if all of the hippies around you are like, "Yes, do it." Don't do it. Don't do it. We're having a midwife on. Actually, our next episode is gonna be on, the Free Birth Society. Hannah, such a great topic. And so we're gonna have, if everybody's schedules align, right? It's like, if she doesn't get called to a birth, if you don't have rounds, we're gonna do a recording with her. It would be great to just ask her what her take is. She lives in a
Mhm.
very hippie area of California, so
Yeah, can't wait for that one. It's WART.
Sarah, thank you. I mean, as always, it's just like every cool possible topic
Mhm.
comes up. And if people have questions about, I'm never going to say it right, eating your placenta or any of the other topics that we covered, you can find us on Instagram. I am getting better at posting now that we're back from our break. I'm starting to put some clips out there again. So we're on Instagram at Influence to Death, or you can email us influencetodeath@gmail.com. And yeah, the next episode is going to be on the Free Birth Society, which is spooky town. So we will see you then. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.